But can the knower ever know itself beyond all contexts? It is this ultimate real that is the one that transitions us from the jurisdiction of Vishnu to that of Shiva. And this is via the work of Brahma. And again, these three forms could be thought of. We could also say that from the pravritti to the nivritti, from the outgoing path of the extension, the res extensa, to the res cogitans, right? To use Descartes' formula for it. To go from body to mind, to go from the world to the perceiver. But these two polarities of reality, subject-object, they remain polarities in a dance, Shiva and Shakti, until the ultimate unification, the realization that who you're dancing with are your own potentialities writ large. As options for becoming that were not chosen, but which are equally valid options, equally valid manifestations of God that appear in every possible form and many impossible forms. It is this richness of the infinity of form and formlessness that is a whole, that cannot be gained through an effort of trying to master it from a finite level of intelligence. What must happen is the letting go and the dying of that finite identification. But who does this? The ego can't do it. No one can do it. Because there are no doers. There is only the dreamer of the dream. There is only Shiva. There is only Christ consciousness. There's only the Buddha nature. There's only the Tao. There's only the Wuji. Use whatever term you want. There's only Allah. It doesn't matter the term, because no term can capture the real three that we're talking about, which you are. Not that you will become, not that you will one day realize, but that you are forever, always, because there is no time or space. That's part of the illusion. That's part of the manifest phenomenal capturing of eternity as time. But time itself is just the moving image of the changeless eternal. And once that is grokked, then the moving image of yourself, which is the ego, as a body in motion in a world, will be let go of. And that frame of reference will no longer have any interest. But when it happens is when the Dharmakaya chooses it to happen. When Paramashiva chooses to unconceal itself from your apparently separate consciousness. It is not a choice then that you can make to become enlightened or realized, because there is no you. The sense of there being a you is the obstacle to the enlightenment. Therefore, the only thing that can be done is the non-doing of the replication of the sense of becoming. The freeing consciousness from thought, because thought can only represent, it cannot be present. It is representation. It is a step removed from reality. It is a reflection. It is a shadow of the real. And so we have to move from the mind shadow, the moon shadow, to the sun. We have to move from the loss of self, which is itself the magnetic power of attraction that produces chakra 2, which is why that's the core of the ego. It's all about, it wants attraction of the other. It wants the gaze, it wants the power, but it wants it to come from outside to inward. But really, It's a way to avoid knowing that you are already the inward power that is projecting the outside. It is only your own reflection that you want to return to you. It is your own yo-yo that you've thrown out that comes back. But once that is recognized, there is no one to receive it in return. And there is no one out there to give you anything. It's that illusion of duality in which the truth is you are both polarities, not just one. And you are neither because you transcend both. But this can be realized only in the absence of thought, in the absence of action, in that glorious moment of surrender of consciousness to its own source. But again, that surrender is not an act that someone does. It is the absence of a someone and the presence of the real that is the infinite potentiality that we can call God or the self or Buddha nature or whatever we wish. But it's nameless, formless, infinite intelligence, which comes with power, which comes with grace, which comes with beauty, joy, love, all of those describable attributes. But what it is, what the self is not describable, not knowable, not transmittable with any terms or images. It is this ultimate goal, this ultimate jewel, this ultimate treasure of consciousness that we are all seeking, that we can only attain when we allow the seeker to dissolve in the love of that self. And therefore it is love, not as a devotion of one to another, but love in its purest sense. And the love that one can feel for another being in this world, within the realm of the ego, can offer a glimpse of that love because of the power of the energies that love releases even at the ego level. But the energies that are released are powerful because they don't come from the ego level. But once they're misidentified with the ego level and what you think you love is a bodily being, the energies are lost. And that's why love does not remain. And that's why il n'y a pas de rapport sexuel. Because once it has been brought into the lower frequency of body consciousness, it becomes lust, and then it becomes disdain because it cannot be sustained. It becomes repulsion, it turns into its opposite, or it turns into a neutrality of an uncaring episode of the past. It cannot retain presence. It cannot retain power so long as it is linked to and projected toward a particular object. Because love is the refusal to objectify. It is the transcendence of both subject and object. But that transcendence, which is holy and sacred, must never then be projected upon a phenomenal relationality that is only its shadow, that is only its nirmanakaya that has allowed then the opening into the sacredness of the Sambhogakaya and the Dharmakaya. And once we understand that the ultimate source and containing vessel of all of this, of the beauty of love and the infinity of permutation of experience and of the apparent solidity of a material world, all emerges as a dream from within that emptiness that is filled with the potency of creative imagination, but does not itself get identified with any. Do we understand the meaning of freedom? And that freedom can produce a life of endless love and joy so long as you do not want to possess it for an individual self. And so the one sin that comes to interfere with God consciousness is possessiveness. And that possessiveness is always inevitably the longing for something you thought you possessed in the past. And that then keeps you from being present. And that keeps you from being real. And that keeps you from knowing who you are. And you can project the longing for an object you thought you had in the past into the future. I'll find that one again, or I'll find the perfect mate that I never found, or the perfect mother, or the perfect whatever, the knight that will rescue me from my suffering. However you might formulate it in the fantasy of the ego, that is always a projection of the very self that you are into some mode of inaccessibility. And it is this self-torment that the ego is designed to continue to repeat. But it will do that only so long as it has a shelf life to do that. And in the present moment, the exhaustion of the ego's capacity even to formulate fantasies of that nature, or to sustain them very long in time because of the ego's own inability for consistency of object constancy, creates a situation where the fragmentation of consciousness produces an urgency to dissolve a collapsing and crumbling ego before one identifies with that crumbling and feels one is cracking up and falling into madness. Because that's what's happening in the world. The crumbling and the cracking up is leading to physical symptoms of severe illness, mental illness, the crack up into suicidality, the crack up into extreme planetary self-destructive imagery of apocalyptic nature, and the destruction that Gaia herself, the mind of planetary consciousness, is enacting in this moment of transformation from one yuga to another, one cycle of time, one movement of consciousness from one eternity to another. And once we understand the meaning of the process of the world that we are involved in, but seeing it from real three, not within real one being shaken up by every earthquake, but from that place in which the birth pangs of a new divine order, a new kingdom of heaven is being manifested. From that state, the stable energies, the scalar force of infinite consciousness produces an etheric matrix in which all of those elements of consciousness are magnetized into coherence. And once more, a world will be dreamed because of the power of God consciousness centering itself within the phenomenal plane and producing an energy field that is automatically magnetized in the direction of the highest truth and beauty. And it is that process in which you are now being carried to that highest level of being, and you are simultaneously the doer who is dreaming it without action involved at all, because everything real is instantaneous, since there is no time or space. And it's in that immediacy of the real that liberation is encountered as your true nature. This cosmic process is underway within you. It shall be successful because God does not make mistakes. There is only the need to pay attention to the process. And liberation will be manifested in the explicate order as it is already real in the implicate.